Hi, this is Joni Beauville, and you are listening to TV Confidential.
Ed Roberts with a reminder that Marion Ross will join us later on this hour. Marion Ross, Mrs. C from Happy Days. We hope you'll stay tuned for that. In the meantime, Greg Airbar is with us as we continue our discussion of the complete series DVD release of the Jeffersons. Before we went to break, Greg and I were talking about how the Jeffersons ran for 11 seasons on CBS between 1975 and 1985, producing more than 250 episodes. And as our friends Harry Castleman and Wally Podrazik point out in their book, Harry and Wally's Favorite TV Shows, the amazing thing about the Jeffersons, all 11 seasons of the Jeffersons are available on DVD through our friends at Shelf Factory. The amazing thing about the Jeffersons, according to Harry Castleman and Walter Podrazik, is that the show is consistently funny. It consistently entertained from show 1 to the end of show 11.
Yes, it was.
Season 11, yeah.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I felt like it really picked up. It began as a mid-season show,
Yeah.
and it really began for me from just going through it again the fall of that season. It was awkward at first because not just because we had to get to know the characters, but because they had to figure out how to make this work. There was a pushback to Norman Lear, apparently, because Good Times was on, and there were people who felt like, well, if you're going to show a poor African-American family, then you should represent an affluent one, perhaps. And he also felt like George and Louise were, in a way, almost similar to Archie and Edith. He says that on one of the bonus features. I don't know if that's completely the same. I don't think George is quite as outrageously bigoted. He's certainly got his faults, but I don't think he's as extreme as Archie is. Louise is the heart and soul of the series in the same way as Edith is.
We accept George because of Louise.
Always, yeah, through Louise. Louise is the conduit, just like Edith is in that way.
If Sherman Hemsley did not have Isabel Sanford as Louise, I doubt the show would have run for 11 years because you needed, again, as you said earlier, you had the two counters to George to put him in his place. And so whatever outrageous things come out of his mouth, you had Louise who redeemed him in much the same way that Edith redeemed Archie, or at least made Archie watchable and relatable.
You had Louise to show you what there was of George to love, and you had Florence to show what of George you could make fun of. So in both ways. The other thing about the first half, the beginning season, was that what are you going to do with a rich family to make them identifiable?
Right.
Suddenly,
especially considering this premiered 75 in the middle of a recession.
Yes. And the first few episodes were awkward, even for Louise, because she was finding her way into this, and she's trying to make friends with another housekeeper, and she doesn't know that she's not the maid, and it's all of that kind of misunderstanding. It just wasn't finding its feet. And then how are we supposed to really worry about what George's aspirations are when he's kind of made it already? You have to have something to root for, and it hadn't found its way yet. And they kind of, in a way, solved it. And it's kind of funny when you think about it. George wasn't a millionaire. From what I'm gathering from really paying attention to this, in those days, you didn't have to be a millionaire to be affluent enough to live on the East Side and to move on up. He aspired to be a millionaire. There was one episode where he wanted to join the Millionaires Club, and he had to fake it. He had to fake his way into the Millionaires Club. So he wasn't a millionaire. And there was another episode where Tom Willis, who was in publishing, wanted to get a job as a vice president so he could make $150,000 a year.
Yeah, but remember, this is
1975.
$150,000 a year went a long way.
True. So the standard of that was George had to have an aspiration now. So we had to give him another goal.
Sure.
George was very type A, very ambitious, and we heard over and over, he had 7 cleaning stores, one near you. You know, his slogan was constantly that. So he was always wanting to get bigger and bigger, and sometimes he got in the way of himself. There's people who are very rich, and you wonder, well, they're already rich. Why would they want more? Well, sometimes it's the acquisition of money that brings you power. In the case of George, he came from poverty, and he wanted a better life for his family. And you do get information about that as the episodes go on. There are flashbacks to his childhood where Sherman Hemsley plays his father. And there's also a flashback to the Martin Luther King assassination and things like that. So you do learn more about where George came from, where the family came from, and why this means so much to him. But it isn't so much about he wants the power of it. He does, but he also wants to be a big shot. It means so much to him to be important because he's been downtrodden for so long that he wants to be somebody. And sometimes he has to be reminded, but there's also an episode where you don't forget where you came from.
Exactly.
And you don't reject that either. You don't lose who you are and look down on who you are and what you were, because that is part of who we are.
Yeah.
So there's an awful lot of that in George. So his wanting to be more is they really worked hard on what drove him, so that you weren't just thinking, well, what do we care? He's rich and he wants to get richer. Why are we identifying with this? They really worked hard to give that goal a reason. And then they had to figure out what to do with Louise all day, because she had nothing to do. So they found a terrific thing. She didn't just do ladies' charities. They kind of made the ladies' charities seem like almost a socio-political game where this other lady was always winning the awards for her charity, and she was doing it for the glory. Louise started volunteering for the Help Center, and that became almost a subset of the stories. And then Helen and Louise were volunteering that. And sometimes there were whole stories about the Help Center. And so Louise's time wasn't just giving money. It was, she spent all her time there. The place was not always successful. Sometimes it was failing. So they showed that you can have a lot of money, but you can still have a lot of problems. Everything doesn't go perfect without it being gritty. I mean, the show was escapism. It was very broad.
No, there were not any very special episodes of the Jeffersons, as I recall. And it never tried to be that type of show. It always strived to entertain, and as we alluded to earlier, more often than not, it did in the course of its 11 years. Greg Ehrbar is with us as we take a look at the Jeffersons. All 11 seasons of the Jeffersons are available on DVD through our friends at Shout Factory. Extra features include the 1-hour pilot of Checking In, the spin-off series of starring Marla Gibbs, as well as other behind-the-scenes interviews. We've touched on pretty much every character of the show except for Mother Jefferson, who played by Zara Cully. And on the one hand, it was sort of a typical character in that she clashed heads with Louise and everybody else. And George, she was the only one that George kind of kowtowed to, even though he was. And again, that in a way that kind of grounded George, because even though he could be obnoxious or insufferable and that he would run his mouth off before he thought, the fact that even despite his success, he was always trying to please his mother. I mean, that's an identifiable trait. But as I also recall, Mother Jefferson was also that typical character who was sweet as sugar on the outside, but venomous, venomous on the inside.
And Louise could do no right.
Yeah.
No matter what Louise did. And she would do that if she liked something, oh, isn't this wonderful? And then she found out Louise did it well, but it wasn't all that good. That sort of thing. And Zara Cully's health began to fail, and I believe that's why they brought in Florence, because she became the sort of the replacement character in the household, which kind of made a little more sense because Mother Jefferson was always stopping by and always in the neighborhood to basically hound and harass poor Louise. There were a few very special episodes on the Jeffersons.
Right.
By and large,
I stand corrected.
Well, by and large, it was a lighter show than Maude and All in the Family. By and large, And sometimes it's even kind of dismissed for that. It's mentioned in passing, kind of sometimes in not the nicest way sometimes. And but there are some episodes, especially towards the end. But there are, like I mentioned, those two, but especially towards the end, there were a few. There was one where there was a gentleman named Otis who was a shoe shine gentleman outside of the store, one of the cleaning stores, and there was a photographer coming, and George, they wanted him to get out of the way so they could take a picture of the cleaning store, and it became an issue of, is he the embarrassment there? But that's his job, and he got to know Otis, and the whole issue of your place in society and the people in the area and everybody's position in life. And it was a really, really good episode. Every once in a while they would do one like that. Not a lot. In the last season they did a couple of more than they did, I guess, because they figured, I don't know that they knew they were going off necessarily, but it was a while, and maybe they thought they should return to more of that kind of story. They also sort of dipped into the All in the Family well a little bit. There was an episode where Archie didn't realize he was joining a clan.
Oh, yeah, I remember that one. That was a two-parter.
Yes, and there's also an episode in the Jeffersons where there are complaints about certain elements being in the building, and George doesn't realize that there's a clan, and I think Tom inadvertently talks to the people organizing it and doesn't realize that George is his friend, and they all go to this meeting, and Ike Eisenman's in it from Escape to Witch Mountain. He's the son of the clan leader, and it's not handled quite as believably as the All in the Family, because the ending is a little too pat, but it's the same basic story. Inadvertently, we didn't know kind of thing. You know, one of the things that Phil Rosenthal said about Everybody Loves Raymond is they had the 5-year rule. That when a series was on for 5 years, you could go back on the files and you could kind of turn them around. And
for Roy Huggins, it was 7 years.
There you go.
Yeah, but variation. Again, this is a three-network universe. This is, at least the first 75 to 80, the first 5 years of the show would have been pre-DVDs, or pre-VCRs. At least VCRs were not as widely available on the market as they came to be by the time the Jeffersons left the air in 85. So you figure the first 5 years of the show, it was on either Saturday or Sunday. So if it was on Saturday, people may have been out the night that it was originally aired, so they may not remember that they did a show with a similar premise in season 1 and redo it in season 7 or 8.
There's also some continuity issues that would be a big deal now because of streaming and binging and DVDs and all, like the fact that Billy D. Williams appeared in an early episode, but then through almost the whole show's run, there are Florence jokes about how she loves Billy D. Williams all through it, but she's already met him.
Yeah.
And Sammy Davis Jr. appears late in the series, and there's no mention of the fact that they met him at the bunker house. So things like that. But in those days, they didn't do that as much. Yeah. There wasn't as much adherence to it.
It was a self-contained show in every sense of the word.
Yeah. Because no one anticipated. It's just like no one knew there was going to be syndication in the late 60s and early 70s.
Or people like you and me talking about it 50 years later.
Yes, exactly. And who knows what's going to happen later. Someday this show will be syndicated and listened to, and we'll be sitting at a table, and people will go, episode 342 where you talked about the FBI. Remember when you asked about that? And we'll go, I don't remember. You must have listened to that more than I did.
Or this with friends, it would be the one where they go, Wheezy!
Yeah, exactly. And we'll go, no, we don't. I think we're projecting and fantasizing just a little too much, but you just never know where this stuff goes. Plus, they say that this stuff also beams out into outer space, and other planets may be watching and listening to it.
What are some of the other... To quote Joyce Bulifant, where do you go after that?
Yeah. Well, the other things, there's one extra disc, and the pilot for the series ER, not the ER.
The one with Elliot Gould?
Yeah, the Norman Lear ER with Elliot Gould. And the reason is because George Jefferson makes an appearance in it. He's in it because there's a character related to him in it. Like his niece, I believe. I forget if it's a niece. I think it's a niece.
And that's, I don't remember if it aired as an episode of The Jeffersons or not, but it was sort of a semi-backdoor pilot in that respect. It's not a spin-off in that sense of the word, but if it's a spin-off because you have George Jefferson in the pilot, and therefore you can consider it a spin-off in that respect. Okay, so that's one of the extra features. I want to go back to Sherman Hemsley for just a second, because I think what we talked about All in the Family, we mentioned that he was either the first actor to play George, but then he stopped playing George, and then Mel Stewart showed up, but he wasn't George, he was George's brother. But the reason for that was because Sherman Hemsley was doing Pearlie on Broadway at the time, and so they sort of, and this would never happen today. As I understand, Lear and Bud Yorkin sort of had a placeholder for the George Jefferson character, so they kept it in place for when Sherman was available.
Yeah.
And obviously they did, and if they didn't do that, we may not be talking about the Jeffersons in outer space.
Or Josie and the Pussycats.
Or the Jeffersons for those listening to us in outer space.
Jeffersons in Outer Space. That sounds like a spin-off to me.
That's a Saturday morning cartoon. Produced by Hanna-Barbera.
I could see Hanna-Barbera doing that. And then they have a rock band.
Yes.
There's always a rock band.
Yes.
And a cute little creature, little adorable
and
thing.
Sherry Alberoni doing one of the voices.
Yeah. That's right. Yeah. That's right.
Okay, what else do we have? What else do we have to say about the Jeffersons?
Well, there's a little documentary, and there's also the All in the Family episode where they say bye-bye to each other. So that puts it all together. I don't want to say that the set itself is currently available. The Lear stuff is difficult to get as far as the discs. However, the streaming is available, so you can get it on Amazon Prime as a series.
Oh, cool. So, okay, so DVD, it's available somewhere if you know where to look.
People are selling them, but it is currently available through Amazon Prime. Well, actually, it's Stars with Prime Video channels. So you have to get some kind of something and then hook it up to the something.
Well, I think I could add Stars to my Fire Stick service through Amazon.
You can get some of the individual seasons on DVD. The only way to get all 11 seasons and the bonus is in the box set. But the whole series is available on Amazon Prime through Stars.
I have Amazon Prime. So for people like me who have Amazon Prime, you do a search and you punch in the Jeffersons and it'll direct you to where you can go screen it.
So it is accessible.
Okay.
The Norman Lear stuff is very special, and it requires special access to get. But it's really cool to watch these shows now because they're in some ways they're dated, but in some ways they're remarkably timely.
Greg Ehrbar is special, and he's always timely. You can read Greg's animation spin column twice a month at cartoonresearch.com. You can also, for more information on Greg, GregAirbar.com. Greg, we'll see you again soon.
Okay, thanks a lot, Ed.
Marion Ross will join us when we come back on TV Confidential. Hi, everyone. I hope you're enjoying our podcast. If you're listening to us on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/TV Confidential, be sure to hit the subscribe button.
Buying or selling a home can be one of the most stressful things we'll ever do in life, but it doesn't have to be. And no one knows better than our friends at Front Porch Realty Group. They're a community of realtors serving the Northern Bay Area of California that cares about their clients as individuals first and foremost. Whether you're a first-time buyer or looking to lease or sell your property in the Bay Area, Front Porch Realty Group will help you through this important transition by providing you with the right information for your situation while lessening the pain. They also work with a network of realtors throughout California who provide the same high caliber of customer service. Call Front Porch Realty Group at 415-886-7411 for a realtor referral near you. You can also visit their website, frontporchrealtygroup.com, for more information on the services they provide, including upcoming workshops and seminars. For more information, call 415-886-7411 or visit frontporchrealtygroup.com. Front Porch Realty Group, They'll find the solution that works best for you.
Missed a show? We have more than 250 archived editions of TV Confidential available as digital downloads. For more information, go to shop.tvconfidential.net, shop.tvconfidential.net. If you follow country music, you know that the CMA Awards have spotlighted the top performers in country music every year for more than 50 years, capturing the songs and artists who have all contributed to the soundtrack of our lives. With that in mind, our friends at Time Life have just released CMA Awards Live, Greatest Moments 1968-2015, a 3-DVD configuration that will become available at retail for the very first time on Tuesday, January 8th. CMA Awards Live, Greatest Moments 1968-2015 includes performances from some of country music's biggest stars over the past 5 decades, including Glenn Campbell, Johnny Cash, Loretta Lynn, Alan Jackson, Taylor Swift, and Carrie Underwood, plus newly produced interviews and other bonus features. Retail price is $29.99 for CMA Awards Live Greatest Moments 1968-2015. 3 DVD set available at retail wherever music is sold beginning Tuesday, January 8th from our friends at Time Life.
Uber is the mobile app that connects you with a driver for immediate transportation. Request a ride at the tap of a button and you have a driver curbside in minutes. You can choose to be driven in a black car, SUV, or you can choose UberX, the low-cost Uber for a ride in a hybrid or mid-range car. Payment is seamless and cashless, billed to your card on file with no need to tip. Enter the promo code TV Confidential after you download the app to receive a free first ride up to $20. For more information, go to get.uber.com/go/TV Confidential.